What's up YouTube? It's Thien back with another video. Today's gonna be a little bit different. I know usually I'm talking about like tech, software engineering jobs and whatnot. And I've mentioned before a few months back that I bought my first, property and I ended up using it for Airbnb, start Airbnb business. So the purpose of this video is to kind of, use this as like a milestone or like a little benchmark or just a reference point in time for at least myself or others out there that are considering an Airbnb business, and also what to avoid with that business and what to look for, and also how things are going for me personally, just to remind myself. And yeah, I kind of want to just go over everything that's been going on with the Airbnb, how it's been going, if it's still the move, if it was the move, and if I would recommend this to others. And the ups and downs, and what to do and what to avoid. So let's get into it. Let's start off with the downfalls. I think there's definitely been some hiccups with this Airbnb, and I think these hiccups are avoidable for those of you out there that are considering entering the Airbnb space. And I think my buddy of mine also have been through some hiccups as well with his Airbnb, and so yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit. I think for myself, I'm actually not gonna go into too much detail because I am in the middle of a lawsuit with the previous owner due to circumstances. Essentially, they're not paying me my money for some bookings that they had for me after my purchase date, and so yeah, keep that in mind when you're looking for property that you are considering Airbnb or short-term rentals. There might be some mistrust or some delinquency when it comes to purchasing a property that's already on the Airbnb market or short-term rental market, and they already have bookings in line. And so there's going to be transition, and what I had to do with that is essentially I had to take matters into my own hands. I had to end up managing the property, finding new property. I was gonna find new property management, but but I ended up actually managing the property myself. And I think I'm gonna spend time on a different video talking about how to go about managing your own property from afar, remotely, without having a property manager, so that way you can build more capital, because a lot of property managers out there, they will take 20% off top, and a lot of this work you can't do yourself. It just takes some setting up, and then after you have a system set up, you'll be able to reap on that 20%, and then save a lot of money as well in terms of like all the fixes and whatnot, because when you hire a property manager, you still have to pay for all those other things that essentially you'll have to do. Essentially, they're just, we can get into that in another video. But yeah, I think that's one of the downfalls. So definitely avoid any transitions, or if you were to purchase a property that already has some bookings lined up, make sure that in your purchase agreement for the house, make sure that everything that has to do with the current bookings that are after post closing date, make sure that that's included in your purchase agreement, so that you don't get screwed over, or not necessarily screwed over, but just a lot of annoyance. Like I have to go through this whole legal issue and lawsuit and whatnot, and that's going to take some time for me to get that money, and I have to put up my own money out of my own pocket to secure a lawyer and whatnot. So not to say the money won't come back, especially if you're in the right, but yeah, keep that in mind when you're purchasing a property for Airbnb and short-term rental. And then another thing too is I know my buddy, he is Airbnb-ing his property where he's doing a house hack, where he lives in his house and he has 2 units, and one of the units he's doing a short-term rental. He's going back to the long-term rental life because it's a lot more stressful when you live in that same house, and because you're just seeing these customers in and out. And I think the fortunate I was fortunate enough to be so far away and so far removed from my Airbnb that like all the small things don't bother me, because I don't even know any small things that are happening. My thing is just, is the house good enough for the next customer? All right, next customer, come in. And that was really like the mindset for me. And so it's harder to do that when you're right there and you get to see everything for what it is and the face value, especially if you're gonna clean things yourself too. or you get to look at it every time. You just see like these little things, and they can irk you because this is your property. You're living in the same house, and so I think that's something I would try to avoid as well. Try to buy investment property when you're doing Airbnb or short-term rental. Try to be removed from it and understand that it's a business and that there's a process with it. And so the closer you get to it, it can bother you. You know, I think that's something to avoid as well. Cool. Now that we got all the downfalls out of the way, there's been a lot of upside to it. I mean, let's just talk about the reservations alone. If you look at my calendar for Airbnb, I don't know if you see that. I'm like, this is in October. I got booking all the way out in October. Let me go through right now. We're in February. I had February like more than halfway booked. I got March booked up, and I got another customer booking a full week that I need to get scheduled in there. You know, April we got bookings, May we got bookings, June we got bookings, July we got bookings. So you can see like it's looking kind of good. I'm gonna show y'all the numbers too. I'm not gonna add anything now just to remind myself where I'm at. You know, this month I made $10,916, and you can see the forthcoming months I'm gonna be averaging around $10,000 a month, and I'm expecting more bookings to come in as well. And this is just Airbnb, by the way. Keep in mind there's still VRBO. I have a few bookings on VRBO, but the majority of my bookings are through Airbnb. And I think there are other platforms out there, but currently I'm only using Airbnb and VRBO. And so, yeah, I think it's been a huge upside. It's paying my mortgage, and it's also helped paying for my rent here in New York. And I'm still profiting off of it. And I think this could be a very solid business for me to, you know, get out of the whole job market, the whole W-2. And that's always been my life goal, is to not, you know, work corp my entire life. And that's the whole purpose. If y'all don't know, I'm overemployed working 2 jobs right now. I mean, if you consider there may be another job, that's just, you know, my side hustle, right? But I'm working 2 main jobs right now, and doing so helped me generate enough capital so I can purchase this home, and so that I can essentially get out of the rat race. And so that's my ultimate goal, and it's definitely helped me out with that. I think something to look for when you're looking for an Airbnb, I think, I'm not saying that every single Airbnb is going to be this successful or generate this kind of revenue or profit. I think what I did was do a lot of research and asked a lot of people that are in the Airbnb space, like what worked for them, what didn't. And I think like what I said earlier was the whole management process. I can get into that in another video. But I could talk a little bit about what to look for when you're searching for a home to buy for Airbnb. Again, I think you gotta look for the right markets. I think, you know, you gotta consider this is short-term rental, so you gotta find a place. And I think the sweet spot is within like the $500 to $1,500 a night. All right, I think that's the sweet spot, because you got to remember, anything below that, you're going to be competing with the hotels in the vicinity, in the area, in the market, in the local market. And then anything above $1,500, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because you're also going to be competing against hotels again. Because like, why would a customer want to pay above $1,500 for your property when they could pay for that, get around that, and pay a little bit more and get like this whole VIP service? And I'm not saying you can't do that. I think if you're gonna enter that above 1,500 mark, that's when you start getting into like this whole VIP service area. Like, you gotta compete with like the VIP. So you gotta provide VIP service. You gotta provide like concierge, or you gotta provide like 5-star service essentially, because that's a lot of money. Unless you got a really, really big property. But then I think when you have too big of a property, then you start getting to like event spaces, because I'm also getting into that a little bit too. I got people reaching out to me asking me about weddings, if they can set up weddings at my house. And so, yeah, I'm sure that when you get into a bigger property, that's when you got to start thinking about like venues. And I think that can be a little bit more of a headache. I wanted to keep it simple for my first property. So yeah, look for something that's around the $500, $1,500 a night price range. And then also, the more rooms, the more bathrooms, the better. And mine's a 7-bed, 5-bath. And then have it in an area that has a lot of tourists, but also people that need short-term rentals. You know, I was looking into mainly Florida and Nevada and California. in Texas. I think those were like the main places, and I ended up in Nevada because there's a lot more conventions in Nevada, but I think that was like one thing that sold me. But I think it works anywhere essentially, as long as there's like reasons for people to rent it out. You know, I think Orlando was like my first. Cocoa Beach and Orlando were my first places to look, and I think if I do look for another one, I might look in those areas. But I think I just also might continue to buy in the area that I'm in right now because I already have a team set up, and so that's considerations I'm having for my next purchase. And I do plan on purchasing another one this year just because the money's really good, and so. And again, this is like a real estate asset, right? So, beside like the profit on the monthly cash flow, like you still own a home. So, it's a solid investment. I think Airbnb is definitely still a move. Short-term rental overall. It's just you have to consider your market, where like location, and also the actual house you're buying. You got to keep in mind that it's meant for short-term rental. Yeah, and I think in a future video I'm gonna talk about property management, how to manage it from afar, how to manage it remotely, and what kind of team you need for your home. And so, yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it at that. Airbnb is still the move. Highly recommended to those out there. Just try to avoid any legal issues if you can. Keep that in mind. All right, until next time, y'all. Peace.